Hi everybody, welcome back to Bentley House. I'm Ara, and today I'm going to be continuing work on my abandoned coffee shop project. If you are new to this project and want to catch up, you can check out the linked playlist above. Today I'm going to start out by adding some broken glass to the window. I'm using some plexiglass. This is something that you can get at a hobby store or at a hardware store. I'm just going to mark off where I want the glass to be broken, and I'm going to use scissors to cut it. This is not always the best way to cut. As you're going to see, it breaks it in half, but for me it's okay because I do want this to be a broken window, so having two pieces instead of one is not really that big of a deal. You can do this a little bit easier with an X-Acto knife, but the scissors were faster and I was okay with it possibly breaking. To install it into the window frame, I just used some hot glue. I tried to be careful with the hot glue and not get it too globby, but I do plan to cover it up after it's installed, so I'm not too worried about it. In case you were wondering, this plexiglass is a 32 inch thick, which for me personally, I think is the perfect width for creating a realistic glass look in 12th scale. Just a side note, if you're planning to use this technique on a miniature, I suggest it be one that no children will be playing with, as the plexiglass can actually be sharp. To create a more worn and weathered look, I just took my X-Acto knife and added some scratches. I imagine there would have been branches going in and out of the window, possibly animals coming in and out, and so the window would have definitely been scratched up. To create the look of the glass being dirty, I wanted to add some Mod Podge to a little bit of a light colored paint. The Mod Podge is going to help the paint stick, and the paint is just going to give a light hazy effect. To cover up where I glued in the edges of the glass, I am going to use a very fine green, it's the stuff you can get for like model railroads. I'm not sure what it's called. It's called coarse turf, and this is the color light green. And the brand I'm using is called Woodland Scenics. You should be able to find it at any store that supports the model train hobby. I will be using this throughout my entire project because it really gives the effect of nature coming into the building and moss growing up on surfaces. On the outside of the window, instead of putting moss like I did on the inside, I decided to take some of the foam bricks that I made in my brick tutorial, and I am going to glue them on as if they have kind of fallen out of the frame of the window. If you would like to check that out, I will link the brick tutorial video above so you can see how I did it. I wanted to add just a few more things to the interior walls, the first being pipes, and I'm using some paper straws for these. You can find these in party stores. Usually they're decorated to match a party theme. I chose paper over plastic straw because for me it's easier to cut. It's thicker, so it would look more like a thick wall of a pipe, such as a PVC pipe. And also I felt like the paper straw would hold on to the paint better than a plastic straw. So I put a base coat of a PVC-like color, and then of course I aged it using some black and brown, and now I'm just sliding it behind my faux drywall so that I can have some pipes sticking out. I've tried to place them where I believe pipes would be according to my plan for the interiors, and now I'm just kind of aging them into the project. Next, I just wanted to add a few wires. My husband had this leftover wire from a project, so I decided to use real life scale wires. Sometimes I like to put some real life items into my miniatures, especially when I think they could be passable. You could of course use something thinner like embroidery thread to pass as wires, but I thought, why not? Let's put some real size wires in here. And I am no electrician, so I don't know if it looks correct. I'm sure some of you may have more knowledge than me that can let me know, but really I just wanted the effect of some items that would be in the walls kind of torn out leftover pieces. Next, I'm using one of those paper straws again to create my tree. I made a hole in the foam board base using my X-Acto knife so that the straw could actually sit into the base. I'm using hot glue to glue it to the base, and then I'm putting hot glue all around the base so that it can have a firmer hold to the foam board. Now I'm using some craft sticks. I've bent the bottom to kind of like a tripod type idea that it would help support the straw since it's sticking up so tall out of the foam board. Once I get 3 craft sticks on there, I'm going to make sure to secure the feet of the craft sticks with hot glue very well. This is going to again give my tree base a bit more stability so I don't have to worry about it falling. Next, I'm going to use some wire to create my tree limbs. I'm sorry, I've lost its packaging, so I'm not sure what gauge it is. I'm just going to wrap it around the tree form several times and then wrap it around itself to create the branches. And then I'm going to take some hot glue. I feel like this is going to give the clay that I'm going to use a little bit more to grab onto. And I'm going to make sure that I look at some tree references so I can get some ideas on how my branches should look. Next, I'm going to use some creative paper clay. This is the first time I've really used paper clay for a project. I'm very excited about it. I really liked working with it. I did realize you have to work a little bit more quickly than with polymer clay because it is a drying clay. So I started with the base of the tree and I decided to form that and sculpt that first before I went to the top. I used the back of a paintbrush to create some lines into the clay. I hope you can see it well. I'm sorry, my second camera was not doing the greatest job focusing, but I ended up really liking the texture that I was able to create with that. After I created the texture all over the trunk of the tree, I was able to go back and just add a few details like a hole in part of the tree and just kind of fix my lines, and anywhere I saw that didn't look quite right I could go back and just focus on those parts. After that, I wanted to get on with the branches and just slowly I built up the clay on top of my wire and hot glue base. This process obviously took some time and patience, but as I worked with it, I got more and more used to working with the paper clay, and it started to kind of act right or do what I wanted it to do. After I had gotten that on, I was able to kind of mesh the top half that had the more recent wet clay on into the bottom half, which had already started to dry, and that worked really well. So I do suggest, if you're just starting to work with paper clay, work on it in sections because it is easy to get the sections to kind of blend together. I let my clay tree dry overnight so that I knew that it was completely dry before putting my first coat of paint. I put a base coat of a dark brown, and then I wanted to layer colors on top of it. So the next color was a gray. I wanted this to be possibly an older tree, maybe a dying tree, and so I felt like the gray would very much tone down the vibrancy of the base coat I put on. And lastly, I'm putting on a highlight. This is kind of a cream color because this is going to highlight the texture that I worked so hard to put in when I was sculpting the tree. One suggestion I have when you're working on a project like this that could take months to complete is to keep track of the colors and the hues of paint that you are using, because you can use them in different parts of your project and that will make your project look more cohesive. I went back with a little bit of black paint just to add some details and to show that some parts of the tree were more sunken in. Here you go. Here is the finished tree paint job. I really like how it turned out. I think the texture turned out really well. It looks smooth and also a little bit bumpy in areas. The smoothness makes it look a little bit more weather worn, like the wind has been sweeping things around it, but it still has that bumpy tree texture. To kind of cover up my gap between the clay and the floor, I decided to add some more of that green moss that I had mentioned earlier. I'm just going to lay down a layer of glue and then just dab it on. And it was really fun to kind of follow the pattern of the tile as if this moss is growing up in between the tiles. And it really gives that feeling as if nature is starting to creep in, or is, I guess, already creeped in to this once commercial building. So that's it. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial that was over like 5 different things. Let me know which part was your favorite. Let me know what you think you'll be trying in your own projects. If there's something that you didn't quite understand or you would like to see have its own video, let me know and I can do that in the future. For now, I'm really excited with how this turned out. I am even more excited that I get to start on the interiors of this project. Some furniture and some, I don't know, maybe some creatures that have kind of moved into this project. So stay tuned for that. I hope you guys have an amazing week and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.